Philip the Fox Cub and His Journey Along the Japanese Islands. Chapter 1. The Little Dreamer with the Fiery Tail. In a distant village, surrounded by dense forests and shrouded in mist, lived a small red fox cub named Philip. His fur was so bright that it seemed golden even in twilight, and his tail, like an artist's brush, always betrayed his emotions. It quivered with excitement, arched with joy, and drooped to the ground when Philip felt lost. But most of the time, this tail stood proudly upright, like a flag proclaiming its owner's independence. Philip was no ordinary fox cub. Unlike his brothers and sisters, who loved playing hide-and-seek or chasing butterflies, he had adored everything related to water since early childhood. Streams, rivers, lakes, they lured him with their mystery and promise of adventure. Every time Philip approached the shore, it seemed to him that the water whispered stories about distant lands and unknown creatures. He was especially captivated by the tales of old hedgehog sailor Barsic, who many years ago sailed around the Japanese islands and returned with amazing stories of ancient temples, giant fish, and cities where people built houses out of paper. One evening, sitting by the fire next to Barsic, Philip asked the question that had long been on his mind. Is it true that you can sail to Japan on a boat? And are there really such big fish there that they could swallow an entire house? Barsic chuckled, adjusting his glasses made from halves of a nutshell. It's true, little one. But to get there, you need not only a boat but also courage, knowledge, and a bit of luck. Are you sure you're ready for such a journey? Philip nodded, though his heart was pounding with both fear and excitement. He already understood then that this would be no mere outing but a real test. Chapter 2. The Homemade Boat and the First Step Towards a Dream. The next morning, Philip woke up with one thought: he had to build a boat. Of course, the idea seemed crazy to everyone. Even his mother, who usually supported all his endeavors, shook her head as she watched her son gather branches, roots, and pieces of bark. Philip, you know that foxes don't sail on boats, she said gently. We live on land, and we have no need for such things. But I want to know what's beyond the horizon, exclaimed Philip, waving his tail so hard that he nearly knocked over a cup of milk on the table. His mother sighed but didn't argue. She knew that once her son set his mind to something, nothing could stop him. Philip's helper was his best friend, a squirrel named Alice. She was a jack of all trades and could find useful items in the most unexpected places. Together, they began working on the boat. Philip drew plans in the sand using a stick as a pencil, while Alice gathered materials: sturdy branches for the hull, leaves for the sail, and even an old rope found near an abandoned hunting lodge. You know, said Alice, tying the last knot, this boat looks pretty strange. But if anyone can make it float, it's definitely you. Philip smiled gratefully. He knew the boat wasn't perfect, but it was his creation, his dream embodied in wood and leaves. When everything was ready, Philip hosted a farewell dinner for his friends. They brought him treats, sweet berries, nuts, and even a small bottle of honey. Old Barsic gave him a map that he himself had used during his travels. Remember, Philip, he said, handing over the scroll. The ocean is vast and beautiful, but it is also dangerous. Be careful and trust your heart. That night, Philip couldn't fall asleep for a long time. He imagined endless waters, new lands, and encounters with amazing creatures. In the morning, when the first rays of sunlight touched his face, he got up, took the map, and headed to the river where his boat awaited him. Chapter 3. The First Trials. The boat rocked on the water, as if testing the resolve of its new captain. Philip took a deep breath, jumped inside, and grabbed the oar. The wind filled the leafy sail, and the boat slowly moved forward. At first, everything seemed simple and even a little boring. The river was calm, and the banks were adorned with blooming bushes and tall trees. But the farther Philip went, the more the landscape changed. By evening, the sky clouded over, and it began to rain. Drops drummed on the leafy sail, and the waves grew higher. Philip clung to the oar, trying to keep the boat on course, but the wind was too strong. At one point, he heard a crack. One of the knots holding the hull together started to unravel. "Not now," whispered Philip, trying to reach the rope. But then something unexpected happened. A huge fish with shimmering scales and human-like eyes suddenly surfaced. It looked at Philip intently and asked, "What are you doing here, little fox cub?" Philip froze, unable to believe his ears. I'm sailing to Japan," he replied, struggling to contain his trembling. "But my boat is about to fall apart." The fish smirked. "You're very brave, but foolish. This ocean isn't meant for ones like you. However, I'll help you if you fulfill my condition." "What condition?" asked Philip, feeling his heart beat faster. "Bring me a feather from the peak of Mount Clouds. It possesses magical power and will help me protect my home." Philip nodded, though he had no idea where this mountain was. The fish pushed the boat towards the shore, and Philip disembarked on a small island, deciding to wait out the night. Chapter 4. Mountains, Spirits, and Ancient Secrets. In the morning, Philip examined the map that Barsak had given him. Sure enough, Mount Clouds was marked, but it was far from the coast. To get there, he would have to cross a dense forest and overcome numerous obstacles. Philip didn't know what lay ahead, but he was ready for anything. The first challenge was a river flowing through the forest. Its current was so fast that Philip had to use his oar as a lever to avoid being swept away. Then he encountered a family of talking stones, which presented him with a riddle. "If you wish to pass, answer this. What can you see with your eyes closed?" Philip thought for a moment. He remembered Barsak's words about how sometimes answers lie within the heart. "Dreams," he said confidently. The stones hummed approvingly and parted, opening the way. The closer Philip got to the mountain, the more he felt its magical power. At the summit, he found a surprise, a magnificent phoenix whose feathers glowed with a soft golden light. The phoenix looked at the fox cub intently and asked, "Why do you seek my feather?" Philip told his story, and the phoenix, moved by his bravery, gave him one of its feathers. "Remember," it said, "true strength lies not in objects, but in your heart." With the feather in his paws, Philip returned to the fish, who kept her word and helped him continue his journey. Chapter 5. The Japanese Islands and New Friends. Finally, after many days of sailing, Philip saw the outlines of the Japanese islands. It was a sight he would never forget: towering snow-capped mountains, ancient temples perched on cliffs, and cities where people truly did build houses out of paper. There, he met new friends, a little dragon guarding a rock garden, and a girl magician who taught him how to make origami. Together, they explored the islands, uncovering their secrets and helping each other. Chapter 6. Returning home. When it was time to return, Philip realized that his journey had changed him. He had become braver, wiser, and learned to value not only his dreams but also those who had helped him achieve them. When he returned to his village, he was welcomed as a hero. But most importantly, he understood that the world was much bigger than it seemed, and that there would always be room for new adventures.